Monday, May the 11th, 2009. War crimes, what are they all about? Well, let me use three words to describe them. They are victors, justice. That's actually two words, isn't it? The concept of war crimes, originating primarily after the Second World War, but also after the First World War, was always applied to those who were defeated. And when Eisenhower created all those camps along the Rhine River, where people were treated worse than animals who happened to have surrendered from the German armed forces, he referred to those individuals as unarmed enemy combatants. He did not give them the privileges of prisoners of war, which should teach anyone that surrender doesn't necessarily produce mercy or justice or a return to civilization. It usually demonstrates the power of the victor to exact vengeance, and vengeance is not justice. I'm one of the few people in Canada who has actually defended a war crimes trial in the last 50 years, here in Canada, with the benefits of the presumption of innocence, with the benefits of a jury, and that was in the Fintic case in Toronto in 1989 and 90. I went to Hungary to take evidence in Budapest and Szeged. I went to Jerusalem to take evidence there from people who were involved in the deportation of Hungarian Jews in June and July 1944 from Szeged in southern Hungary. This was a trial of a Hungarian gendarme who was, after a deliberation of probably under 20 minutes in fact, acquitted of all 8 counts, 4 of crimes against humanity and 4 of war crimes for basically the same thing. This trial probably cost millions, and the government has never been willing to say how much. But what it demonstrated is the tremendous political pressure on governments to exact vengeance in the name of justice. And that, of course, is a failure with ordinary people like you and I. We see the injustice of that. And we see that the way the jury saw it. You know, halfway through the trial, they were laughing at the prosecution. And they wore, on Valentine's Day, the trial went from the fall of 1989 to May the 8th of 1990. May the 8th, 1990, was the anniversary of the end of the Second World War, and I began my address to the jury by saying that if you find justice in this case, the war will really be over, not just carried on by other means in another atmosphere and with a different forum, being the courts. This was the beginning of the end for the war crimes prosecutions in Canada. In the real sense, they took away the power of a jury, they took away the right of the presumption of innocence, they took away all the rights to a trial that would be worthy of the name trial, and they made it an offense under the Immigration Act. They called it war crimes trials, but they're really not. They're trials of whether or not a person lied about their entry at their time of entry into Canada, about what service they had in the wartime and where they came from. This is what happened in Michael Seifert's case. He did not have a trial, or couldn't have a trial with a jury. And in fact, he had a trial with a federal court judge without a jury, where the presumption of innocence did not apply, and where the balance of probabilities was all that was necessary to prove guilt. And this is how they avoided the results of common sense judgments on the Second World War. They put it in the hands of judges, and they made it a civil case. And that's the way they defeated Michael Seifert. They also defeated him by making sure the Italians did not extradite him until after the Italian trial had occurred. This was so that he would not be able to testify in his own defense, which he did in Canada on the extradition. And he did in Canada also on the immigration trial. He was tried under 2 attacks at the same time with one lawyer, namely me. He wasn't even allowed to have legal aid. This was all done to Michael Seifert for the benefit and public humiliation of an enemy of, shall we call it, the establishment. They really don't care about justice. They care about the political effects on their friends and the powerful in this country. And that's by no means justice. That is what Canadian political courts have become. And that's why we have to realize that victor's justice is not justice at all. And another aspect of this whole thing is now evident in the Khadr case. He's also called an unarmed enemy combatant. We define what the wars are by who wins, but also once the enemy's defeated, we don't call them wars at all. We just call them people who are unarmed enemy combatants, and they don't have the right to a trial. They don't have anything. They can be tortured, apparently. They can be forced to make confessions that result in their further incarceration, so they're never tried. And Demjanjuk is another case in the United States, where he's been tried in Israel and found not to be Ivan the Terrible. He's been tried repeatedly in the United States. People who do this are interested in vengeance, not justice. And unless people like yourself and others who are concerned write to parliamentarians and involve themselves in expressing concern about justice, there never will be any. Because vengeance is not justice. Ordinary people know that. That's why they don't give these people jury trials. They make sure it's in the hands of political courts. And it's dealt with by the power of the state, who have all the money to prosecute, and they give no money for the defense. And this will result, they hope, in the satisfaction of their friends, who also like vengeance and not justice. So war crimes trials in Canada, the Seifert case, the Finta case, and others are another reason why we have to free the West, so that our justice system is not a political system. It's a system of true justice. That will not happen in Canada. Free the West.